Hi, welcome to Soapy. I'm Greg Rikaart.
And I'm Rebecca Budig. I broke my heel before.
Yeah. What is going on with your shoe?
I keep getting stuck to the rug. You know, these are old.
Tell me about those shoes, Becky
These
Jo.
shoes, these are from Erica Kane's closet. I'm pretty sure I did not steal them.
Susan Lucci's shoes?
Okay, listen, in all fairness, Susan Lucci they'd lay out all of her shoes. She had a lot of shoes. And they went through all of her shoes.
I see they say Erica.
They say Erica. They are secondhand. I like vintage, so, you know. Anyway, I may or may not have stolen them.
And broken
when they were rejects. She didn't want them, and now they're broken. They're stuck in the rug.
Maybe she got rid of them because they were broken. Just said, here, Rebecca, you can have these.
Anyway, well, I'm excited about our guest today.
I'm thrilled about our guest
Well,
today.
because I've heard about this man for forever. He's written for several shows, one of which I was on.
General Hospital, Days of Our Lives, Beyond the Gates.
And
Just to name a few.
Didn't he create your character on Days of Our Lives?
He created my character on Days of Our Lives. So I'm thrilled that we get to chat today with Mr. Ron Carlivati, and I get to express my eternal gratitude to him. And we get to have some fun conversations. So stick around, and we'll be right back with Ron Carlivati.
Here with the very talented Ron Carlivati. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for coming here.
Thanks for having me.
For those that don't know.
Fresh off the slopes.
Right, fresh off the slopes. He was skiing, folks.
Yeah, I was covered in Parade magazine.
For those that don't know, Ron has written for, One Life to Live, General Hospital, Days of Our Lives. Beyond the Gates, you were not a scriptwriter, correct?
I was an outline writer. Yeah, I was part of the team.
You were part of the team. So many soap operas. But you are from Rochester, and you were a lawyer. Is that right?
Yes. I went to law school in D.C. Straight from college, and then was working in a law firm. And oddly, my boss, I spot behind you guys on their shelf, was David Baldacci, who's a legal thriller writer.
Oh, my God.
I don't know if you planned that, but he was my boss, and he was not a famous writer at that time.
He wasn't?
No. And one day we had merged into this other big firm, and I said, David, how do you like what do you think of the new place? He's like, can I be honest? He's like, I hate it. And I was like, what? And he goes, can I tell you something? And he like shut his door, and he's like, my dream was never to be a lawyer. My dream was to be a writer. And he said, I almost sold this movie script to TriStar Pictures, and the deal fell apart, and now I think I'm just going to be stuck here for the rest of my life. And I was like, oh, I was just like, hey, how are you? And then he said, well, I've written this novel, which might be something, but I don't know yet. And I'm going to New York. You know, I have meetings with like agents, literary agents, and he like needed someone to unload to, and he told me about it. And so I was following his adventures during this period, and he called in sick and took the train to New York City from DC and came back and like laid the business cards out on the table and said like, I had 5 meetings and 4 out of 5 want to represent me, and they're telling me I'm the next John Grisham.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, wow, really? So then this goes on for a little bit, and then he picks one that was very excited about his book. It was a manuscript at the time. And he says, well, they think it's in good shape. They don't want to edit that much. They're sending it out to publishers like tomorrow. And I'm like, okay. So I'm afraid to ask, because I'm like, what if no one wants to bid on his book? I'll just wait for him to say something. And it's like the very next day, and he's like, can I see you in my office? And I was like, you know, my heart was not in my job, and I'm like, I'm sure I did something wrong. I'm like getting fired. I like follow him down the hall, and he closes the door and writes down on a legal pad, and it's like, it says $2 million on it. And I'm like, what? And he goes, my book just sold in less than 24 hours for $2 million. And I was like, what? And he goes, don't tell anyone yet. I haven't told anyone. He goes, I have to call in sick again and go sign the contract. So takes the train to New York City the next day, calls me from there. I'm at my desk, and he goes, it's in the Wall Street Journal. I'm like, I know, everyone has seen it. Like, and every office you pass, the lawyers were like reading this thing, because it was a record advance to a first-time novelist at the time.
This is
that
insane.
the book? Is that the actual book?
It's Absolute Power. I don't know. He has so many books.
Did he share this with you because he knew you liked to write? Were you?
We kind of did bond over like entertainment and stuff like that. So I don't know. He just like started sharing it with me. And then when he called me back and said it was in the paper, he goes, guess what? And I'm like, what? He goes, I just sold the movie rights for $1 million.
Oh my God.
And then he called back an hour later and was like, I sold foreign international book rights for $1 million or something.
That is bonkers.
So he made like $4 million in a week. And then they made the first one into a movie with Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman. And so he, of course, left the firm to go be a full-time writer. And I went back to like writing articles of incorporation and shareholder agreements, and it was super boring. And I was like, I have to leave.
Wait, but did you?
Oh my God, this is the best story.
You could edit that all out down to a
No,
short.
No, it's a fascinating story.
But do you? I don't know. Like, where in his journey was the seed planted for you, or had it already been?
It was like I did sort of like the concept of writing. I took like playwriting class in college, but it was nothing I thought I could do as like a career. Like I just went to law school thinking like, oh, you have to have like a real job. But after this happened, there was this thing like at work that just going to his office to hear the latest about the book, about the movie was like what I looked forward to going to work. Then he left and I was just back to this. And I'm like, I have to leave here. And it was just like, I don't know what I want like to do, but I can't stay. So I'm like, he followed a dream and it worked out. So I left and I had to like sit and really ask myself, like, what would you write? Like, what would you want to do? And I grew up watching soaps. Like,
Did you grow up watching One Life to Live?
With your sister and your
ABC. Yeah. My sister, our babysitter lived across the street. So she would come, it was our neighbor really. And she would come and watch us for like an hour before my mother got home from work. And we would get off the bus at 10 to 3. So I would see the last 10 minutes of One Life to Live. So I always saw like the little cliffhanger. But really, we watched General Hospital. I was obsessed with General Hospital when I was like 10.
Yeah.
And watched it religiously. Then it was like the summer and I could watch all of One Life to Live. And then, of course, that also became All My Children.
Yes.
Ryan's Hope, I think.
I did the same.
So I watched them all and I really thought like, I could write that. It really, One Life was my baby, but like I loved all of ABC. And like, and so I decided to move to New York and I decided I was going to write on One Life to Live with like no connections, no anything. And just like lived on my friends' sofas and like, I was a temp. And actually I remember like when I moved to New York, I looked up like where the soaps were and I found the address of All My Children and I walked like across town and just like looked at the building and to like this is where I want to work.
That's amazing.
And so I really would have taken anything, but obviously One Life was like my baby. And then I was living in New York like 9 months and was thinking, you made a big mistake. You're like on people's couch and what are you going to do?
Yeah, 6 months you're still hopeful.
Yeah.
9 months you're like, what have I done?
Yeah, and like a whole new crop of kids is graduating from law school, like getting all those jobs. And they're like, what have I done? And
that's a lot of years to put in for law school.
It was,
yeah.
It was
studying.
like, no, it was like, it's 3 years and like 2 years into it, I'm like, I don't know if this is what I want to do, but you want to finish and get the degree at that point.
Yeah.
So then I've probably told Greg the story, but a friend of mine wanted to go out. It was his 30th birthday. And he was like, let's go out. And he wanted to go to this bar, Pravda, that was like this Russian vodka bar, like in Soho, I think. Like, do you remember this place?
No, I don't remember.
And it was I don't know if it was still at the Hill. Like, it was like celebrities went there. And so he wanted to go his 30th birthday. We go and like we walk in and Jack Nicholson is like standing at the bar with the Ray-Bans on and like with Ashley Judd, randomly with Ashley Judd. And I'm like, are they in a movie together? So anyway, I'm like, just here and we're talking and I'm talking with my friend and this guy goes, oh, I'm sorry to be eavesdropping. Are you guys lawyers? Because we were talking. And she was actually the one that got me into the firm where David worked. And I go, yeah, she's a lawyer and I just quit being a lawyer. I want to be a writer. And he's like, oh, I'm quit being a lawyer. I'm trying to be an actor. And then he goes, what kind of writing do you want to do? And I just learned, like, tell everyone that you want to work at a soap opera. Because when you're in New York, like, things just happen, you know? You're like, oh, I know this person. I know that person. Like, so anyway, I said, yeah, I want to be a soap opera writer. And he goes, oh, my friend works at a soap opera, One Life to Live. And I was like, oh, what does your friend do? And he goes, he's the writer's assistant. And I was like, oh. And he goes, as a matter of fact, he's quitting his job next week.
That is so crazy.
And I was like, oh. And he goes, and I think he's supposed to find someone to take his job. And I'm like, he goes, is this something you would be interested in? And I'm like, trying to just, like, this is like my ideal dream. So I'm like, yeah. And we don't have smartphones. We don't have anything. I write my phone number on a piece of paper at the bar.
Praying that he doesn't lose it.
And yeah, just give it to this guy.
Right.
And I go back to my little temp job. I was working in the legal office. And the next day someone calls and is like, it was the guy whose job it was. And he said, he said, you met my friend, you're interested in my job? I'm like, yes. He said, could you fax me a resume? Like, oh my, at the fax machine. So I send him the resume. And then the next day, this woman, Robin Goodman, she was a producer at One Life to Live. She's now a huge Broadway producer. She's amazing. She calls me and she's like, I understand you're interested in a writer's assistant job. And I said, yes. And she goes, well, I need to hire someone in a hurry. How soon can you be here for an interview? And I'm like, I'm getting in a taxi. So next thing I'm in a cab, I'm like walking into the studio on 66th Street. And like, you know, there's the stills of the show going up the stairs. And I'm like, I'm at One Life to Live, you know, like, and I walk up and, you know, and Robin is like, you know, she's in this like black Armani suit and she's like, no nonsense. And she's like, Robin Goodman, why One Life to Live? And I was like, what answer does she want? Like, I didn't think like that. I just sort of said why I love One Life to Live, you know? And I'm like, well, I love the rivalry between Vicki and Dorian, and they're friends, but they're enemies. And like, you know, I'm just going off. Yeah. And then after a while, I like obviously passed some sort of test with her. And she's like, I want to take you down the hall to meet the head writers. So walk down. It was Gene Passanante and Leah Lehman. They were partners. And so I'm talking to them. I'm telling them like my David Baldacci story and they all sort of said, we sort of have someone for this job. So I knew it was going well, but I'm like, they're just being nice to me. So then I leave. I go back to my little temp job. And at 5:00, Robin Goodman calls and she's like, you got the job. She's like, we had someone else, but we liked you better.
Oh my God. Can I just say that
this story is so insane.
If I was a network executive and you're pitching this story, I'd be like, can we add another obstacle? It's too easy. Like, it is literally as though you arrived in New York City with your bags and you're like, this is my dream. And someone with a platter just said, oh, here you are.
But this is also an example of setting goals and
believing
in them.
And also like, and saying it out loud.
It really is true. Really like when I look back on it, like it's just kind of incredible.
You visualized it. You went to the building. You're like, this is what I want to do.
Right? It's amazing.
And I really would tell anyone like, the jobs exist. Like, it seems like, how would you get in that door? Like, you just have to kind of pursue it.
Yeah. Do you stay in touch with David? Your former
So
boss?
I will like send him, or I'll see an article about him and I'll like email him or whatever. But he's, you know, he has like, I don't know how many, he comes out with like a book a year, you know, and this was like 30 years ago.
Did he, was there a time, especially back in those early days, was he a mentor in any way as you were getting started?
No, I would definitely like, can I send you this that I wrote, and give him, you know, and he would like give me advice and everything. But I like, you know, moved up in every job. So I was the assistant, then I was a script writer, then I was what was called a breakdown writer, then like associate head writer, co-head writer, and eventually head writer of the show.
What year was that you got hired as the writer's assistant?
1996, 30 years ago in October. Yeah, it was
We've
amazing.
all been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
I was on Guiding Light in 95. So
really?
Yeah.
96,
95 to 98. And then I went to All My Children in 99. So
wow.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, no, wild.
It's remarkable. And also funny how, you know, you end up exactly where you're supposed to be. You were not supposed to be in that law firm, and all of these subtle or not so subtle moves were pushing you to where you needed to go.
It was wild.
What were some of your favorite storylines at One Life to Live that you wrote?
Oh, wow. I mean, a lot of my favorites were like before I was even there, because, you know, like it was Vicki and her personalities, you know, it was like Tina going over the falls, and like, you know, just like I loved all those kind of storylines. And then, you know, when I got to write those kind of stories and those characters and bring Vicki's multiple personalities back, and I loved that. Like my favorite story was probably like, we used to do like, you know, Erica Slezak, who played Vicki, who was the star of the show. She would take like a huge break in the summer.
Right. And
so Vicki would always go to a conference, because Vicki owned a newspaper. So it was always like everyone, the audience knew that Erica was on her vacation because Vicki went to a conference.
Right.
And so one year when I was the head writer, it was so boring to be like, Vicki's going to a conference. I was like, why don't we do something with Vicki? Like Vicki disappears. Like, why can't it be a story? And it was right around our 10,000th episode, and we played Asa's death, you know?
Oh, right. I remember that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so we used it as a thing of like, Dorian challenged Vicki, like, you know, life is short, and like, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? And she really didn't know. And we did this thing where she was seeing her kids off, all the people that came home for the funeral. She was seeing them off at the airport. And at the end of the episode, she walks up to the counter and she goes, give me a ticket on the next flight out of here. And they're like, where to? And she goes, it doesn't matter. And they're like, round trip? And she says, one way. And she gets on and leaves. And like, that was it. And then I had her vacation time to figure out like where was Vicki?
What she did in that
where
time.
was Vicki?
Yeah.
So
I actually remember that.
Yeah. So I wrote this story where I basically ripped off. I was like addicted to TV when I was a kid. I watched every sitcom, every show, and I basically copied that show Alice.
Oh yeah.
You know. So what we played was that when Vicki came back finally after her vacation, the kids were like, I haven't heard from Mom. It's been kind of weird. And we got her on the phone, and you don't really see her close up, and she's like. Or you only see her close up and she's like, oh, I'm in Paris. It's wonderful. I'll be home, whatever. She just kind of blows them off. And then when you hang up, you pull back and she's in like a waitress outfit. And they're like, orders up. And you hear the bell and she's in a full waitress costume and she's in Paris, Texas. And so I made up this basically went back. We did flashback and saw that Vicki just that was where the flight went. And she walked into this diner and like this waitress had quit or gotten fired, and she ends up asking for the job, and no one knows she's this rich, woman. And I even think we put Alice like on the name tag of the uniform that they gave her. So we got to create, these new, basically the Mel and the Vera and the Flo. It was Farrah Fawcett, was Gigi, and we created a whole new little bunch of characters. And of course, somehow the storylines from Landview all collided in Paris, Texas, and Vicki was revealed as this waitress and everything.
But here's what I want to know. So you said you had the idea that we were going to send her away on the next flight. And then what's that process like in between deciding, hey, what if she just ends up as a blue collar waitress in Paris, Texas?
Right.
What's the space in between where you like, we have this slew of ideas and this one fits the story best? Or where does the inspiration come?
I mean,
for you?
I think like I'm always like, what's different? Like, what's the most different for Vicki? Like, wouldn't it be fun not like to see her as something totally different? Yeah. And then like the blue collar job idea. Then I'm like, we could copy Alice. And I thought of Paris, Texas. Like it all just kind of starts to gel. We got Brian Kerwin to play the love interest. And he was a big Broadway actor and a star, and that turned out to be a great couple, Vicki and Charlie. And it, and Frank was completely supportive and game. We had this amazing diner set, and I still have like it was called the Bonjour Cafe, and I have the menu. I have the menu. Yeah. I have on every table. This is like there used to be so much more time and attention to detail on the show. It's like there was a Eiffel Tower with a cowboy hat on it on every table in the diner, and I have that like. It was so cool. Did you confer with Erica Slezak on any of this? Because someone like that, she's so seasoned, and a lot of times, they would have not a say, but they wanted to be. Erica was someone who had a say in everything. Yeah. But what was amazing was she was game for everything. She was not someone who was like, Vicki wouldn't do that. Vicki wouldn't say that. Right. Like she was said, my job is to make what the writers give me work. Unless there's some way that. Character-wise, I cannot make it work. Has your experience on all of the shows that you've worked on been the same in terms of like, do you have that kind of support from your producers, from the network, or your streamer? I mean, I have to say, like, you hear horror stories of like, this actor was like, my character would never say that. I would never do that. Or the network has a million notes. And it's not like you don't have those experiences, but in general, over 30 years, I have to say, like, it was a collaborative process, and you can't have like an ego about it. Like, I'm in charge of like 30 characters. If you're saying, I don't think Greenlee would sort of act like this, you're probably right, because you're just playing her and I'm in charge of 30. So I listen to what the actors say. And I'm sort of in Erica's camp, where you kind of have to make it work at some point, because you could fight, you could battle everything, and you just kind of have to find a way in. I always said, like, you could send Vicki to Mars as long as she acts like Vicki. Exactly. like that's the more important thing to the audience. The audience isn't like, why would the spaceship go to Mars? It's, why is she not behaving like Vicki? Yeah. So One Life to Live ends. And Frank ends up going to General Hospital. Frank Valentini, he's producing General Hospital. And you end up writing there, which is the show that you grew up watching. Yeah. What was that experience like? Yeah. Because I also went to General Hospital. You brought me on to General Hospital for a minute. So
it's so different, all these different sets and the actors and the vibe and everything. So how did that
was
work
crazy
for
too,
you?
because like I said, like over time, One Life became the show that I really identified with. But the one I started really was General Hospital, like, and I was 10 years old, watching Luke and Laura and all of that with the rest of the country, the rest of the world. So that was like the next experience was like walking in there and getting to write Anna Devane and, Luke and Laura and the Quartermains was just incredible. And essentially when I got there, the shows evolve over time. Obviously Sunny and the Mob became such a huge thing at General Hospital and something you identified General Hospital with. And but I remembered the show even before that. So I was like, oh, I want to bring back Heather Weber and I want to bring back like the things that I remember from when I was 10. So, and they let me do that. Like,
I think the fans appreciate that.
But here's what I want to know too. When you get hired to be at a new show, do you have a meeting with the network executives who say, hey, this is where the show was going and this is why we wanted to change course? And do they give you broad strokes of what they want to see you do? Or do they just say, it's yours now and have some fun?
What they really did at General Hospital, which was not like, I really almost had like a meeting with every actor. Like I sat in an office and they just came in one at a time and we just sort of said, like, I was like, tell me about your character, or like, what do you like about it? What story do you wish you were doing? And we kind of like went through everybody. Obviously, like Tony Geary was an important one because Luke was like, arguably the star of the show. And, I just met with every person and like got to hear, like, let them be heard, like, what they were missing, and then kind of crafted stories around that, and just wanting to bring back Lucy Coe and the Nurses Ball, which I never understood. Why did they stop doing it? Because I loved it, and so I just started kind of doing that, but then trying to service, like, I know how important like Sunny and Jason and Carly, and I know how important that all is, and I have to service that, but I also like want to write the show that I remembered and loved at the same time.
I was listening to a podcast you did for the WGA with a couple of other writers, and you mentioned that you feel like the audience is aware of what the limitations are within the genre, and that if they don't see a certain actor at a certain character at a funeral or a wedding, they understand that maybe there can only be this number of. Yeah. Can you speak more to that, and what are the different challenges on different shows with whether it's the number of sets you can use, the number of characters?
No, on days like the number shrunk.
While you were there,
yeah, right? While I was there. It was like when I got there, it was sort of like you can use 13 people in an episode. And let's say we have like 30 or more, plus all the people who are non-contract, whatever. Oh, so it's like you can use 13 and you can use this number of sets. And then you have to repeat certain number of sets the next day, whatever it was. And then it was like, oh, by the way, it needs to be 12 people. And then and you can like kind of make it work. So you have 3 stories going on. Okay, there's 3 people in this story today. There's 4 in this one. There's 3 in that one. Then it's 12. Then it was 11. Then it was like, I don't know if it got to 10, but that's really hard.
Yeah.
By the way, how do you keep track of that? Do you have like a whiteboard and you go like this? Because, God, stories evolve over time. Yeah. And different people and different stories and different sets.
Like there's different systems at different places we would get like a layout sheet and it was like, this person is under their guarantee, over their guarantee. It's like, oh, you haven't played this person for 3 days. Throw them in, or you're overplaying it. Or to go back to what you were saying about like the audience does get upset. Like, why wouldn't this person be at so-and-so's wedding? Or why wouldn't they be at this? And I'm like, I'm supposed to use like 11 people. And now you want a wedding that has, they would really let me make exceptions. Like if it was Christmas, if it was a big wedding, I'm like, we have to use like 15 people, whatever it is. Yeah. Like I turn on certain shows and I'm like, it feels like there's 50 people there. Yeah. But the audience, they do get it, I think. But the other thing is sometimes it's for the actor. Like for you, if you're not doing something pivotal at this wedding, then you're sitting there all day in a pew, in a tuxedo, in just a dress, doing nothing. Like I'm sure you probably don't. You're probably grateful that you weren't invited to the wedding.
I don't know. It's always nice to kind of have those easy days too, I think. But
get paid.
You mentioned that people are like, why wasn't that person in here? So there's a lot of criticism sometimes that we all take, right? And it's about your characters and you're like, I'm just the actor playing the character. Yeah. But you're like the writer, so they blame it on you or something. How do you handle that sort of?
Yeah, I didn't always handle it so well.
But
it's also hard.
But to your point and to your question, I think what's different, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. We also get a lot of, I think we get a lot of praise and accolades and stuff. And in my experience of hearing what fans have to say about the direction a show is going, it tends to not be, that was an amazing week. This writing is so incredible. They tend to, it's the keyboard warriors. So do you feel like you get a disproportionate amount of criticism, and how do you handle that? And do you get accolades from fans?
Yeah, I mean, yes, you do. I mean, the thing is, you notice the criticism more, and the people who want to criticize it are the ones that are generally speaking more. Like, I would go to like fan events, and the outpouring of love was insane, and you have to remind yourself, like, there's just as much, if not more, of these people who just love the show, and I'm paying attention to these 20 who are telling me how much I suck.
And it's the same 20 too, right?
And the thing is, they will definitely blame the writer before the actor, because you guys are the ones they see on TV. That's who they love. And if they are doing something terrible, they're like, oh, poor Leo had to do this thing that they made him do that wasn't in his character, And so, yeah, the writer does get disproportionately, I think, more of the criticism.
So when you say that there have been times that you haven't handled it well, what's an example of a way to mishandle a fan interaction?
Yeah,
screw you.
Well, it was sort of like, they would be like, well, screw you for doing this. And I'd be like, well, screw you right back. And you're not supposed to say that, And, Twitter was like a newer thing, maybe when I was at One Life to Live. Yeah. And it was very easy and immediate, and you're emotional. It's personal. Yes. And it's easy to write back. Well, and even if you're just trying to say, well, we only did that because of this, you get drawn into a circular argument that you can't win. Right.
Yeah.
And Twitter was just dangerous in that way, because it was just easy to respond to something in a second. You feel like
comments social media is just, people can sit and say nasty things and not see the repercussions on the other side. And
I got into a Twitter fight with John Stamos once. And it was terrible.
Go on.
And who's going to win? The person with 5 million followers or like 50,000?
He actually wrote back?
Yeah.
How did it start?
No.
It was honestly, I love John Stamos. It's like, but we, when I got to General Hospital, like, of course, just like I was at any show, I had my dream, like, oh, I want Demi Moore on. I want, and it was the anniversary of the show coming up, and I aimed high. I wanted Demi Moore. I wanted John Stamos.
I don't blame you.
And we really tried, and he was responsive, and we wanted to maybe even incorporate this charity that he had something to do with, and then it, for whatever reason at the time, it like did not work out, and it didn't happen. Like, we didn't have him, and so then I saw him on a talk show, which, if you remember, Jeff Probst had a talk show, the host of Survivor.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
I think it was the Jeff Probst show, and he was on there, and he was talking about how like they asked him to be on General Hospital, and they wanted him to play the drums, and it was like, he just said, I care about the character too much to do, and it was not entirely accurate, or at least from my side of like why Blackie wasn't on, and so I think I said something like, that's not really what happened. And then he was obviously in a mood to respond. So he was like, you don't remember a conversation in Frank Valentini's office? Like, whatever it was, like, he responded, I responded. And then I realized this is bad, because everyone's going to be on his side. This is very public. I shouldn't have done this. And so I'm like sort of trying to get out of it by going, John, it's really not the time and the place for this. And then he's like, no, this is fun. And I'm like, because you're winning. But no, it was a crazy thing where I assumed someone like that doesn't have a lot of time for like a big story. Like, I would want him to come on for a storyline.
Yeah,
Blackie Parrish gets out of prison, comes back to town, right? Like, I assume they want to come and do a cameo, right? And we were doing the Nurses Ball. We were doing the Nurses Ball, and Rick Springfield was going to be on, because, he was Noah Drake, and he was doing Jesse's Girl. And I was like, well, maybe because I knew that he played the drums. He played the drums in the Beach Boys video and everything. And I was like, maybe like Blackie could be like, it was just try to kill two birds with one stone. Like, he's there, he plays the drums in the background. He could have like a little scene with whoever. And very nicely, he said, no, if I'm going to come back, I want to do like an actual story. So I was like, oh, I had no idea, or I wouldn't have pitched the drums if I knew you wanted to do this whole thing. So we actually kind of came up with a story because the character had been sent wrongly to prison, like I'm never seen again for a million years.
Yeah.
And so we were like, what if he comes back with like an axe to grind out of prison against Sonny or something? So we started crafting the story, and then like for whatever reason, scheduling, we couldn't have him. Yeah. So like when he just sat on and was like, oh, they only wanted me to play the drums, I was like, well, that's not really true.
Not true.
Did it resolve
it just kind of petered away, and like it was like a lesson where I was like, maybe don't get in a public argument.
Maybe not a public.
It wasn't John Stamos' fault.
And yes, maybe not a public argument, but on the flip side of that coin is, I think we have your social media engagement to thank for having Jack A on Days of Our Lives.
Yes,
right?
That part is true. I love Jack A from like 227, and I used to like imitate her all the time.
We had her, she was just on.
Let's hear your imitation.
Yeah. Ooh,
Mary.
So I loved her, and like I see on Twitter she's live tweeting like the American Music Awards or the Grammys. I can't remember which. She's like live tweeting, and then Bonnie Raitt was on, and she goes, has anyone ever seen Bonnie Raitt and Maggie from Days of Our Lives in the same room at the same time? Like, because they look alike and they have big red hair. And so I'm like, this woman knows Maggie from Days of Our Lives. So I go, oh, I write something back, and I say like, oh, why don't you come to Salem and find out or something? And then she's
I'll
like,
be there tomorrow.
Yeah, she's like, I would love to. And so of course I went to like Greg Mang and I was like, why don't we have Jack A on the show? And of course, what I found with like producers will like tell you, no, this happened all the time. Like at like One Life to Live with Frank they'll be like, no, we can't do that. But then they call you back an hour later. All right, well, maybe, like I wanted to do this thing. I'll go back to Jack A, but I wanted to do this thing on One Life to Live where Gigi, who was Farrah Fast's character, was like walking on a frozen lake, and the thing drops. She falls through the ice, and then someone had to go. And like, what the budgets are, what the sets are, asking for a frozen lake with a water tank underneath and is a lot of money. And Frank is like, absolutely not. And then, he wants to, then he gets excited about the idea, and he doesn't want to be the no person. So he calls you up an hour later and he goes, all right, here's how we're going to do it. And they did a control, because I'm like, the thing has to break out from under her. They did a controlled explosion to make this plastic ice break and her to fall through.
That is insane.
So oftentimes like we want to like execute these plans amazingly. Yeah. So anyway, they called me. First they say, no, we could never have Jack K. Then they call back, well, let me call the agent, And like we already had the story where we wanted to bring on Chanel's character, I think, and someone for Abe. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what if Jack A is the mother? And and then it just kind of worked out. And like, what I thought was maybe just going to be Jack A ushering her daughter onto the canvas became now she's here for how many years?
Yeah.
I know.
She loves it.
Yeah. She's awesome.
She was here and she was so happy.
No, because I write from New York, so I wasn't at the studio all the time. And I'm like, I'm going because I want to meet Jack A.
Yeah. And
I bought her like at some place in LA, these like macaroons, and I can't remember why. If I knew she liked them, I just bought them. So I meet her and I'm like, oh, I bought you these box of like macaroons. And she's like, oh, thanks. She kind of like throws it aside. And then like later I'm like on the set and it's like, it's all dark and I'm like just watching her act and everything. And then all of a sudden she yells across the thing like, Ron Carlivati. And I'm like, what? And she goes, guess how many of those macaroons I ate? And I'm like, she's like, all of them.
That's so sweet.
No, but it's like, and I'm like, I need a picture with you. Like when we had Dick Van Dyke, I'm like, I need a picture with this man. I am flying there when he's going to be there, because that was another one that was similar to kind of the Jack Hay thing.
And that came from, if I'm not mistaken,
from Drake
Hogeston, who worked out at the same gym in Malibu with Dick.
I was here for the Day of Days, like the fan event. And I'm walking with Drake across the plaza to the fan event. And Drake's like, want to see my friend from the gym? And I'm like, yeah. And he shows me on his phone and it's him and Dick Van Dyke.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, that's your friend? And he's like, yeah, he works out every day, whatever. And I'm like, we should have him on the show.
I love you, Ron. So wait a minute.
Yeah. So then I call the producer and I'm like, do you know that Drake is friends with Dick Van Dyke? And like, he's like, I'll call the agent. And then the next thing we have Dick Van Dyke on the show. Which was like
So
incredible.
awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And you also, so you put Dick Van Dyke on days, you put Jack Gay on days, you put Rebecca Budig on General Hospital.
I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah, but then I left very shortly after I got there.
Oh my God.
It was like I was
I
there
must have been gone.
I was like 2 weeks or something. Anyway, I was very sad. But
Well,
I
you
said to him, I'm like, he's written for so many soaps that I like was in my head like, did he write for All My Children? Did he write for All My Children? But I think it's just because you're at One Life to Live and I knew your name, you know, your name was like just Jean Passanante. She wrote for All My Children.
Yeah.
But she also wrote for One Life to Live. It's kind of like everyone.
Well, didn't you also
it's a
say
small
that your
community.
parties would be at the same, you would have Christmas parties together and stuff?
Yes,
there
yes,
used to be a
yes.
great Christmas party at Tavern on the Green with the show, all three shows.
Yeah.
And it was
That's
so
amazing.
fun.
I know.
And like, you know, Agnes created both All My Children
Yeah.
and One Life to Live. So because of that, like I had a relationship to Agnes.
I was
so,
going to say,
yeah.
did you work with Agnes on?
Yeah. So Agnes,
Stories?
I mean, obviously All My Children was really her baby, but she created One Life to Live. And she would sometimes like, you know, come to the studio and we had Agnes on, like, you know, she played like an angel in heaven or something at the end of our show.
Oh,
And so I really got to know Agnes, and she was like really so supportive and such like a mentor of me and like what I was doing on One Life to Live. She would like have me to her place for dinner, and she like lived in a hotel. Like there was this.
really?
Yeah, there was this.
Was she in a Poochie dress? She always wore
Yeah,
this
she
vintage
always wore
Poochie.
vintage-
She's
yes.
like, oh, this is from the 60s or something. I'm like,
Yeah.
I want all of your
No,
wardrobe.
she had the coolest clothes.
She was so cool.
And she lived in this place like it was out of a storybook. It was like Eloise.
I was
like,
gonna say it was like Eloise,
She
wasn't
lived
it?
it was called the Lombardi Hotel on like I think East 56th Street. And so, you know, she's like, you know, do you want to come for dinner or whatever? So I go there, and, you know, the place is like really elegant, but she still has like the phone on the wall with the cord, like the green avocado phone or whatever color it was, or was like a princess phone.
God.
But whatever, it's like how you imagine Agnes Nixon's apartment to look. And she would call downstairs for like the dinner to be sent up. Like, you know, we're there and she's making cocktails. And then she was like, she picks up this phone from the kitchen wall and says, "This is Agnes Nixon. Could you send up 3 steaks and cream spinach and whatever?" And hangs up, and then this food is like
That
delivered.
sounds incredible.
It was amazing.
I want that life.
what a great experience.
She took me to the 21 Club one time for dinner,
my
and she's
God.
telling me stories about like Fred Silverman at NBC. Like, here's this woman who like there weren't a lot of women doing what she did, and she's like at lunch with like high-powered male executives.
Yep.
And then, you know, she's telling me how, you know, she wrote this soap opera. They wanted to have another one. She goes, oh, they, I think, had rejected One Life to Live. And then after All My Children, they wanted her to create another show, and she pulled One Life to Live out of the drawer. I might be mixing it up, but anyway, she was like
She had
always
great stories.
She was super
great
like
stories.
supportive of me. In fact, like when I got let go from General Hospital, like my phone, I have on my phone the voicemail. I saved it. She called and she's like, "I think it's terrible what they did to you." Like, I have this amazing call from her, and it's like I only have like 10 voicemails on my phone, and that's one of them. Like, she was incredible.
Aww.
Yeah.
She was alive then, huh?
Yeah,
She-
yeah, because I
she
went
was
to her
older.
funeral that was in Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
and I took the train, and like it was strange, you know, because she just was such a legend.
I know.
Yeah.
So then you end up at Days, and then you go to Beyond the Gates to help create this new soap opera, which is pretty amazing in
Yeah.
this day and age that we
Well, I think
are
I've
experiencing a resurgence of the soaps.
Yeah, no, it was incredible. Like so I left Days of Our Lives, and I mean, like we were saying before, I'm like doing it almost 30 years, and we were writing like 5-6 episodes a week, every week. And there is no break. It's like you're shoveling this coal into the furnace and it doesn't stop. And as much as you love it, you kind of want to get off the merry-go-round, you know? So like when I like left Days, I'm like, oh, I don't have to do this tomorrow, you know, like whatever. And like, I want to just put my feet up and think about like, well, what else would I want to do? What would I write? Do I want
Law.
to
Go back to
go
law.
back to law? You know, the world is my oyster. And before I really had time to think that much, like the phone rings, it's Michelle Valjean, who I knew just from the business. Like she'd be at the Emmys, and we were really friendly, even though we never worked together. And she calls me up and she goes, "I understand you're free." And I was like, "Yes." And she
Ish.
said, "Yeah, ish." And so she's like, well, she goes, I created this new soap opera and they actually greenlit it and it's going to happen and I need writers. And I'm like, oh, but I'm amazed, but I'm also like, I don't want to do that. Like, I just stopped, you know? And you're also thinking like, well.
Wait, how soon, how long of a break? How long
not
into
very
your break?
long. Because I think I
months?
left days in like July and she called me in like August or September or something.
Yeah, that's not long.
No. And so, but in my head, I'm thinking this is so flattering and so nice, but no, like A, I don't want to work, and B, like I've been the boss for years. Why do I want to be like not the boss?
Yeah.
But I said, well, can I think about it? And then she says, sure, you know, call me, whatever. And I was in Rochester actually visiting. So I had like this 5.5 hour drive back to New York City. And I'm talking to my husband about it. And he's like saying like, well, you said you wanted to do less and you would have less responsibility with this job where you're not the boss. So, and then, so there was that factor. Then there was sort of the historic factor that this was the first new soap opera in over 25 years. Mm-hmm. It was the first hour long centered around a Black family. Mm-hmm. Also, I had worked at ABC and NBC, but never CBS. So it gave me that on my resume. Mm-hmm. And then also she had Bob Guzzo was on board and I'd never worked with him and he's like a legendary writer. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden all these pluses are adding up and I was like, I only have to write one episode a week, not oversee this whole thing and, you know, come up with the storylines and all that stuff. So I ended up signing on for, you know, it's weird because when you sign on a soap, there's no seasons. It's on every day. But because it was new, it was greenlit for 200 episodes. Right. So we all were only hired for that because no one knew if it would go further than that. So I agreed to come on that, which I'm so glad that I did. I mean, everyone was amazing. Like, you know, all the people were so nice. Like it was fun to be like creating like a new show.
I was going to say, and you're also creating you're carving out these characters.
Yeah, it was the first time.
Be, and that's fun.
When I got to another show, it was like, there was built-in storylines. Yes. This was, you could make up the history. You could create the history.
Yeah.
Also, as someone who had nothing to do with the production of that show, as someone who's worked in this business for 20 plus years, it has just been years of another show going away, and the enthusiasm and fanfare surrounding the launch of Beyond the Gates, industry-wide, right? And even beyond the industry. It was on CBS Sunday morning. It was such a big deal, and it was so exciting to sort of you know, all boats rise with the tide, and it feels like that has ushered in, you know, a new act for this genre.
100%. Like I was so impressed by what CBS put behind it, the launch of it, the marketing, the events that they had was like so incredible. Like Michelle was like, it was so fun that we got to work together. She had never created a show or been the head writer. I don't think. Maybe she had briefly General Hospital, I'm not sure. But she was awesome. Mm-hmm. And so essentially it got to like the 200 and it, not because I didn't love it, but like we were having a little hiatus and I was like, if I want to leave, I have to tell them now so they can find somebody to take my place. And really what it was, and I told this to Michelle, was like, I didn't get that moment to be like, what's my dream? What's my Beyond the Gates? And I was like, I said to Michelle, you never thought this thing would go, like you believed in it. Just like I believed I wanted that job at One Life to Live. And I'm like, you saw it through, like you really inspired me. And so it was hard to leave because I loved everybody. And it was like, oh, I finished my episode on Thursday and I didn't have to think about it again until Monday afternoon, you know? It was a great job. And I was so happy to see the success of the show and it was renewed and all that stuff. And they were like, look, come back anytime you want. But, you know, I sort of left just be like, what's my next?
I do think that like you do something for so long, it's hard to just keep, you want something different or you want to get a refresh in your life. Have you figured out what that is yet?
Not totally.
Does it entail writing? I
do have a little project that I'm like, that is soap related that I'm not like at liberty to talk about right now, but I am writing something that's fun. And it's fun to like be able to like sort of sit down for a minute, like without like being part of that huge machine yet, and just be like,
well, it's year round. It's a weekly, daily thing. This juggernaut of soaps. Yeah, really.
Well, it's there's this expression that nobody wants to be first and then everybody wants to be second. And so, with Beyond the Gates, it's almost like the light's green now, and we've given permission to anyone who works in this genre to be like, no, there's a future here.
Absolutely.
And so that's exciting to see what does happen next. But why do you feel like, why would you say soaps are important today? As important or more important than they ever were?
Yeah. No, you see, like, when I think in 96, when I got my job, maybe there were 10 soaps on the air or something. There were like 10 shows, and then it was like down to 4. And now all of a sudden, oh my gosh, it's 5. Like,
we've survived.
To see it swing that other way. And like, look, with the rise of reality TV, and it seemed like, oh, these are easier, they're cheaper, people watch them, they love them. Like, we don't need these shows. And what we've learned is, no, you do. That people want storytelling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
People want, like, so many shows, which is like, this is not a new concept. Like, most of everything on TV is a soap opera. If you really like,
I know. I think so too.
And like, we get a bad rap sometimes, but like, really, everyone is kind of doing what we do in a different way.
Yeah.
But they're doing it in, like, you can watch 13 episodes, but then that's it. You've got to wait. Yeah. But in daytime, I feel
and they complain about, oh my God, we had to do 26 or we had to do 13. Right. And I'm like, try 260.
But I think the beauty of anyone tuning into daytime is that, it is year round. You do get invested and you can watch something new every day. And you can also pick up and usually kind of get back into it.
What is amazing too is like that, especially with those established shows, that like, you could draw on that history. Like, where else could you watch a show where you saw a kid literally, it was like that movie Boyhood that they filmed it over all those years. It's like, we watched Star from a baby to an adult becoming a mother. And like with the same actor, like where else do you have like that built-in emotional investment over so many years?
The Simpsons, Law and Order, and us.
Yeah. That's right.
Okay. So speaking of our incredible audience, we have on our Instagram account, we have a Soapy hotline. Yeah. And so some fans have written in with some questions they have for you. Okay. The first one that I have here is whether it was on One Life to Live, GH, or Days, which two characters or actors changed each other the most on the page once you put them in a scene together? And what did you stop doing to let that chemistry breathe? That's a good question.
I mean, I think that the answer that comes to mind for me is like Vicki and Dorian, like, and mostly because I grew up watching that relationship, and it's so complex because it's like these people that hate each other, but they kind of deep down love each other in a weird way, or they need each other. Like, it's, I guess, frenemies in a way, but like, you had two actors of such a high caliber with Robin and Erica playing this that, so like, true. It's daunting to just be like, I'm going to decide what you're going to say and do, And so the first time I wrote a script, I was not the head writer. I wrote a script that was Vicki and Dorian, like, and they got locked in a basement, as they always seem to do. Somehow got locked in a basement, and they would have it out for the millionth time. Uh-huh. And like, I got to write one of these one time, and I can't, like Jill Phelps was the producer, and I was in the booth
I love Jill.
Because I wanted to watch this, because we do so much, you don't get to watch it, and I was right in the studio at One Life to Live. So I like ran downstairs and I'm in the booth because I want to watch Vicki and Dorian like go at it in this basement. And like, Jill just looks at me. She was newer to the show. She did not have the relationship to those characters or care about Vicki and Dorian's history or any of that. And so she sees me like, like this, and she's like, why am I watching two old ladies in a basement? And I was like, I said, because it's amazing, and she got it. Yeah. She completely got it. Like, this is not a diss on Jill. Like,
it reminds me of, it's like Jess Walton and Ginny Cooper on Young and Restless would always get into, the same, it's a very similar history.
But like about them, it's like I said, there's Erica, Robin, they're super respectful of the script, but they are also like bringing like so much to it. Yeah. And you knew if either one of them changed a line or reworked a speech, it made it better. Mm-hmm. And you were not about to say like, oh no, it was that. Like, every time they made it better.
Yeah.
Okay. I have another fan question. What is your favorite storyline or two that you wrote on One Life to Live and GH?
Wow. Okay. Well, I talked about, Vicki Goes to Paris,
Yes, you
which
did.
I think really was probably my favorite at One Life.
Yes.
And, for like General Hospital, I honestly think it was, not necessarily just a storyline, but like to be able to bring back Heather Weber, to write for Anna Devane, to like bring the Nurses Ball back to the show and make it a thing again, because, and I understand one of the reasons they stopped doing it, it takes a lot of production and a lot of money.
Yeah.
And the actors are going to have to perform. You're putting on a giant show in the middle of like still trying to write a soap opera, and like, and so like for me, it was a lot of like that kind of stuff, or to be able to write like, the Ice Princess again, on which I grew up watching on General Hospital, like to bring that story back.
I grew up watching General Hospital too.
Like I would say that like on General Hospital, and on Days of Our Lives, like, we brought back Marlena's Possession, which was kind of like had been this huge iconic thing. And I was always afraid to bring it back. Like, how do you top, like when I got hired at Days of Our Lives, I was like, oh, that's the show where Marlena was possessed by the devil. Like, that's what we need to do.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Growing up with One Life to Live in General Hospital, I know we need to wrap up, but you knew those shows. And God, they're so rich in history, these shows, right? Because they've been on for so long. How do you go to a show like Days and wrap your head around these characters that have been there forever?
It turned out to be a great experience because it was a little bit of a crutch for me that I got to those shows and I'm like, I don't have to study the show. I know the show.
Yeah.
When I got to Days, I knew the character. I knew they existed.
Well,
I knew
things
Stefano.
Like, I knew
know
she was possessed by the devil.
But I don't know all the history. So luckily that's why you have this like a team, because I'd be like, oh, how about I'll put these two together? They're like their first cousin. You're like,
oh, okay.
So
no,
you learn it. Yeah. You learn it fast.
Okay. On a personal note, I just want to say that playing Leo is such a dream job, and I have so much gratitude to you for creating him, for bringing him back again and again. And when I'm asked about some of my favorite things that I've gotten to play, top of mind is always Beyond Salem, and the it's hard to break ground when these shows have been around for so long, but I think we had the first gay man, bisexual man, heterosexual woman love triangle in daytime history with Gwen, Leo, and Dimitri. And so I adore you. I'm so thankful to you and will always be. And thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
thank
of course.
you so much.
Yeah.
There's so much I want to talk about more.
I know.
Yeah.
Will you come back?
Yeah, come back whenever whatever you're working on, we can talk about.
I would love it.
That would be amazing.
There will be a follow-up.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for being with us today. And if you've missed any previous episodes of Soapy, you can catch us on the CBS YouTube channel or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we will see you guys next time. Thanks.